Welcome, everybody, to another late episode of Cooper Lyden is Alone. I'm really just trying to keep it casual and just not put out these episodes consistently because I've heard that's like the best way to, build and grow an audience. So that's really the plan right now. But no, I did get a little bogged down. I didn't plan well. I tried to record this podcast a couple times yesterday, and the juice was not being squeezed because, if you've watched this podcast before, you know that I am an absolute freight train of words and rhetoric. Um, but no, I was doing it and I couldn't stop yawning, which is something that is ruining my life. Listen, if you talk a lot, sometimes it makes you yawn. I don't know what to say. I'm a new comedian. I don't talk for an hour all of the time. Yawning, I was coughing, still got a cough. Meanest YouTube comment I've ever got. I just looked under the comments of one of these videos and the guy just said, "Why are you coughing so much?" And it was on an episode of this podcast which I had edited out maybe 6 minutes of coughing already that I had trudged through for an hour to get the good word out to you people. And all he got was coughing. So, listen, am I the strongest speaker in a physical sense? No. Am I the strongest speaker in a metaphorical sense? Not really. But, maybe you could listen for an hour. I don't know. I have things going on in my life. I have big stuff going on all of the time, every single moment. Not really. It was fun. I did get to open the Bad Friends podcast show at the Comedy Store. Andrew Santino, Bobby Lee, Bad Friends podcast. They had a show. It was just them, Jesse Johnson, other comedians, Willie Simon, Logan Gunselman, Comedy Store people, door guys, got to go up on the show, did 5 minutes. That was very fun. They have a great crowd, sold out main room show. Went in the back of the green room, made some of the comics laugh. Boom. I always feel like a dumbass when I'm in the green room of the Comedy Store because, I was there, and then Andrew Santino was there, and there were other comedians there, and everybody's sitting, and then I was just standing after my set, and I just had a water bottle, and I was just sort of lightly unscrewing the cap. And when you're just looking at yourself, and you're just like, you don't look cool right now. Like, if I walked in this room and I looked at myself, I'd be like, this guy doesn't need to be here. So I'm just standing there twisting a bottle cap, but forcing myself to speak, getting some jokes off. I don't know. It is something about a green room is just so not a place that I feel that I have any place to be in, which I don't really. I don't really have a place to be there. But you hang out for 5 minutes, don't take up too much space. That was fun. And we're getting all of the proceeds of that show are going to door guys at the Comedy Store. So we're all going to get a little Christmas bonus, which is very exciting. And I was saying it on stage. I was like, guys, all the proceeds of this show are going to me and the other door guys. How exciting is that? And the whole crowd cheers. And I was like, this is so great. I'm finally going to buy a gun. And I was like, because of Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee, I'm going to shoot up a mall in Illinois. But that's not true. That's a joke. That's a complete joke. I'm going to pay my rent, buy Christmas presents, I have not finished buying all the Christmas presents. It's like 4 days till Christmas. Bad idea. It's because I've been in an economic place for a while where nobody in my family expects me to get them a Christmas gift. Like, they expect it because I do end up doing it, but it's just very shitty. It's just like a shitty gift. Or, honestly, it's not a shitty gift, but it's like I've gotten my mom a lot of like just a Bath and Body Works basket where it's like, here, this is shampoo, It's a lot of that stuff. It's a lot of phoned in stuff, just a gift basket that was made by a shop, you know what I mean? But got my dad a good one this year. I got him good. Got him a fucking Grateful Dead brass bracelet. You size to your hand. 60-year-old dad that likes a Grateful Dead brass bracelet with lyrics from a Grateful Dead song on it. That gets him hyped up. That'll get his dad juices flowing. He's going to be a big fan of that, all right? He's not necessarily a bracelet guy, but he'll show up in a bracelet from now and then. Which honestly, now that I say the word bracelet, I don't like saying that my dad wears bracelets. My mom wears bracelets, tons of chunky bracelets, good bracelets. My dad does accessorize. That is so weird to me. I don't accessorize at all. I don't think my brother wears sunglasses, but yeah, my dad will throw on a ring, not a wedding ring, divorce, he'll throw on a ring now and then, or he'll he'll have a bracelet, a necklace. He'll show up with a necklace. He might have had an earring when he was younger. I've never talked about that with him. Honestly, now that I think about that I didn't realize my dad was an accessory guy. But it makes sense because my dad is 6 years old. He's around like Johnny Depp's age. And I think my dad, also plays guitar and likes poetry and Charles Bukowski and, did not seem to abuse his wife. But, uh, they're from that same sort of Gen X. I don't know. I think if my dad was more successful, he would probably dress like Johnny Depp. Now that I think about it. Because sometimes he'll wear a button-up shirt with a bit of a wild pattern. But I feel like, yeah, there's a lot of dads like my dad who are very autistic people. Artistic. Maybe autistic too. No. Very artistic people. But they're not extremely, and I mean extremely famous to the point where they can dress like Johnny Depp, My dad, hangs out with cool people. He was younger. He ran a very successful poetry magazine, which was liked by, Charles Bukowski and Allen Ginsberg and Timothy Leary. And, he got to meet all those people and correspond with them. And, he did a lot of cool stuff. He was around people. I'm sure at my age, when he was younger, he could have dressed like Johnny Depp. But, I mean, yeah, at his age, he's about 60, and he's, he teaches and does therapy, so he can't walk around in a vest and a fedora. Man, I feel like 2007 was for some reason really the time for that, because you remember pinstripe fedoras, you know what I mean, the same kind of pinstripes you'd have on a zoot suit. People would just wear a vest of that and then a fedora with that, and you could either be Gwen Stefani wearing that, or you could be Johnny Depp wearing that with a red burgundy scarf. Something about that style now, as you look at it, and it seems so kind of dressing like a Bratz doll, you know what I mean? A little bit. Button up, white, long sleeve shirt, untucked, hanging out, under pinstripe vest, and then acid wash jeans. And there are male and female counterparts of that same outfit with a fedora, maybe also a pinstripe fedora. You look back at that style now and you're like, this is so just what a casting director would be like, rocker girl. And even now I feel like in movies it's almost still is not so far off aesthetic. But yeah, I do think that if my dad was a famous poet, that he might dress like that. But I don't know if you can get away with that in the poetry scene. You might be able to, but I think people have the wrong idea about poets. They think they're all just weird, annoying pussies. But I think people who are actually into poetry, I think if you were to dress like fucking Johnny Depp like an asshole, people would be like, "Oh, you're an asshole." Because people don't realize poetry has a lot of fucking fake assholes in it that pretend to actually be artists. The same as any other art, but there's a lot of, showy poets, It's poetry and comedy both had a boom in the 80s. So in the 80s, obviously there are all these comics that we look back on now that are pretty hacky, but just sort of fit the role of being a, marketable comic at the time. And so there's a lot of shitty comics you look back on from any time when comedy was more famous than it usually is. It's the same in poetry, because when my dad was doing poetry readings and running around in the LA poetry scene in the 80s, not Alec, the other Baldwin brother. I think there are three, but one of the other Baldwin brothers who are just copying Alec Baldwin at that point, right? Billy, I think, is one of them, but I don't know if it was Billy. One of the Baldwins, which is so funny because when you say one of the Baldwins, you're all talking about the same type of person. Like, if you said one of the Lydens, like, it would just be me or different people in my family. But one of the Baldwins is just like, no matter who comes, I know what we're getting. But, Steve? I don't know. But one of the Baldwin brothers was doing poetry. So, like, my dad, and obviously I'm on my dad's side. Maybe if I didn't know my dad, I think he's an asshole. Who knows? But my dad is a guy that's running a, successful, cool LA arts magazine that's publishing, renowned poets, but also local poets and artists and shit like that. He's doing that. He's trying to help out in the scene. He's doing stuff. And then, all of a sudden, fucking Billy Baldwin just walks through the door and is like, on a dark night, I was sipping that Jack again. You were supposed to be here, but now I'm back jacking again. Flip the script. I don't like it again. Can't get no good parts. 'Cause I'm not Alec. Daddy always said he liked him better. Now I gotta fuck on camera. Now I gotta get fucked on camera. 'Cause I'm Billy Bald. You wanna fuck me? I'm gonna write a poem about getting fucked and take it down to a poetry reading and try and get fucked. And it's... you know how some poetry is. But... yeah, so we had to deal with that. And I think it's a little harder to be a complete fake asshole in the poetry scene because, poets, kind of like comedians, are themselves very pretentious, cagey, and exclusive people, which is very bad in a lot of ways, but also in many ways sniffs out shit they don't like very quickly. Like, I was in a poetry class in college, and we were introduced, and I wasn't a poetry major, but a lot of the kids in the class were poetry majors, which are very, I don't even want to say intense, more so just, they really love the role of a serious poet, and they seem to play into it a lot to a point that seems a little disingenuous, which is very funny because they look at you and they're like, you're an idiot, you're inauthentic, but then you're looking at them and you're like, well, you're kind of playing a role, so what is to be learned from that if you're not really finding yourself in it? Point is, they're, cagey people. And I remember the first day they were like, the teacher, who was a great lady, she would wear almost like tunics or long, like all black, like Rick Owens style robes, and she had a shiny bald head that she kept tight. I don't know if she had cancer. If she did, she was crushing it. But honestly, I think she just kept that. I think she just kept it shiny. That's just what you wanted, just shiny ass head, not a speck of hair on it. And she was very intense looking, but she was very nice. And she was like, "Yeah, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves and our, what our affiliation with poetry is, or if we have ever done it." And it came to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I've been writing poetry for a while because my dad had this magazine and he corresponded with these guys. And honestly, I'd like to believe I didn't, but I probably bragged about my dad for like 30 seconds to the point that people were like, what the fuck is he talking about? But of course I'm going to brag about my dad. But I think I kind of said that, and I was like, so, like I like Bukowski's. My dad showed me that when I was little, but also as I've gotten older, I realized he's not a good guy to only like, because he's a great poet, he's amazing, but he's also, full of flaws. So sometimes you're just reading a guy talk about how he's pissed off at a lady, and you're like, I should probably expand my reach here a little more than just this. I said that, and I was like, but I also like these other people, and, anyway. I tried to set myself up okay, over-explain myself, I'm sure. But then I was put into a group with I think an East Coast lesbian girl who's a poetry major, a girl from China, and somebody else who was never there. They were just never there. But they were not big fans of my poems from the start, because I was never trying to be a guy that's writing poems like I took another drink of the bottle. I wasn't trying to be a badass in my poems, but sometimes they would just be too simple. Just very, sometimes just like an excerpt from a conversation, then a little sentence or something, you know what I mean? Like I said what, like I took a conversation that I remember hearing on a fishing boat, and I put like those 3 lines, and then I put a line after it, and then a person was like, "Well, you quoted too much. This isn't even a poem." And I don't know if I think they were right a lot about me not being good at poetry, but they were very offended at me not being good at poetry. But I wasn't saying anything rude. They just weren't that great at poems, I guess. And I remember I mentioned I did comedy, stand-up comedy, and it just always seemed like the girl that was from China, she never liked my poems at all. She never liked my poems, and I never really got into her poems because there's a lot of stuff of just like the moon rises over the Yangtze River and a lot of metaphors. And honestly, there was a lot of me that was like, you think that you're good at poetry because you fucking say what a bird is like. You think you're so fucking cool. And I think she just, viewed me as just like a fucking dumb guy, which I understand. But it seemed like there was a little, a wall was built that I could not, surpass. But, and then school went online because of the pandemic. So we weren't meeting in person anymore. And once school goes online, we start posting our poems in forums. So we're doing the same thing we do in class. We're just doing it online, and we're reading each other's poems and commenting. And once we go online, and once we're not in front of each other, this girl decides to post a poem about comedians. And she's like, comedians, all they do is make fun of women and Chinese people, and miasma comes out of their mouth. Miasma, she said, which is like a way of, like a terrible gas. Like everything they say is just awful and stupid and spoiled. And it's like really mean. And it's just saying that like all stand-up comedians, all they do is terrible things, and they exist solely off of hate, and they don't deserve to be up there, and anything you do within the confines of stand-up comedy is bad because stand-up comedy is bad. And I remember responding and being like, hey, I'm going to be honest, it's pretty hard not to take this personally. And I was like, also, I don't really know what comedians you were watching. I don't know if it was around the time of the Shane Gillis thing, so it was just in the air of a comedian making fun of Asian people. But, she, it's this whole thing, and I was like, well, here's some, comedians that you might like. They don't do anything you said. And I was like, also, I got to be saying, as an artist, it kind of bothers me that you, as an artist, have no respect for the entirety of another art. I really don't understand how you as an artist can look at an entire other art and say that whole thing is bad, that you can just disavow or whatever. That's probably not the right word, but I like it. You can just disavow every artist's intention that works within that framework. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's all the same thing. It's like I could write books or poetry or paint or whatever to express the ways I feel, but I like doing it through comedy. And it's just crazy to be like, well, that means of doing it is terrible. It's also like, she's calling me an asshole. She came all the way over here from China, from an entire other continent, to go to a fucking state school in the valley to study poetry. What's your plan before you get on my ass? Okay, I'm here trying to get better at poetry and have some fun. You came all the way over here to call me an asshole? Once this podcast makes me $1 million, I'll still have no idea where she is now. But I will remember her and how much she hated my poems. I always thought it was funny, too, because we just didn't, we didn't talk. We all didn't talk to each other much besides reviewing the poems. It was funny because she would read my poems and just really seem to hate him, and then I would just kind of be like, fuck, man, like, for real? Shit. Okay, well, I guess I'll try and not be biased when I review your like, what the fuck was it? It was just so weird because it was like, you can't be wrong in art, but you kind of can if you're like doing it for the wrong reasons, I guess, or like not putting in effort or doing it for a reason other than just it being good at the kind of art that it is. But like, I felt as though I was trying to a certain extent. Maybe that means I wasn't trying. I was trying. I like writing poems. I was trying to make them good poems and take advice that I got. But they were like, I don't know, kind of like just upset with me that I guess I wrote poems like a dumb dude. But like I wasn't wrong, because I wasn't talking about like race or sex or gender or class or anything. It was just small situations in my life that had to do with nobody else but me, and that was it. You know what I mean? Um, but like it would, I don't know, it kind of makes sense if we were in like a physics class and I just sucked at figuring shit out and was just wrong, you know. But it's like in poetry class, it's like I'm trying my fucking best. You know, and I don't know, that's what I hated about is like liberal arts majors in school are so fucking annoying because I don't understand. They don't know that they're not going to make any money, but they're so fucking serious about it. They think they're all going to be the one person in the poetry class to make it as a poet. And it's just like, no, like most of you will get these degrees and then you'll submit to publications and you'll write, and maybe for a little while you'll run a publication. And, you know, chances are more than anything, you're probably going to teach in some respect, either at a college or at a community center or whatever. And that's fine. That's how you're going to make your money. And you're going to continue writing poems and send out to publications. And, you know, maybe one day, you know, one of you will make a thing that will have some moderate success. But for the most part, no, you're just learning about this. You're going to do it. It is very little chance of you guys becoming poets. Same as very little chance of me becoming a comedian. So for that reason, when you're in college, it's like have fun. Like just have a good time at college. But these kids don't. You know, because I did philosophy at first for a year, and then I was going to open mics every single night, so I couldn't keep up with the reading. So I was like, well, I'll go to creative writing because it's more writing and I can bang that out. Which for the most part was true, and that worked out. But I like philosophy a lot, and I like creative writing a lot. But both people in both of those majors, in any class you're in, are fucking assholes because they're like self-obsessed, faux intellectual douchebags like me that like to just talk a lot. And the problem is these kids came just from high school. They don't know anybody else. They don't know that they're not this isn't that important. Like, you have to have fun in those classes where there's debate. You have to feel comfortable enough, you know, to just fucking ask questions and shit. And like, I'm not at all talking about like any hot button issues or like, race, sex, gender, anything like that, really. Just talking about like we would just have like debates about like life and death and like philosophy class or whatever, and it's like everybody's so serious, and then we're sharing these poems in class, and if they don't like it, they almost get mad at you. And I mean, it's just to a point where it's so funny because I started doing comedy when I was 17, so I was around a ton of people with liberal arts degrees, and they had never done a single thing with those degrees. So I knew coming in that I was never going to make any money out of this degree. So I was like, well, I might as well enjoy the classes then and have fun, because this is the only thing I'm getting out of college is the experience I'm having right now. Like this degree, there's really no longevity in having this degree. It's just a fucking BA in creative writing, But I don't know, none of these kids were fun. I remember people just, I don't know, kids are very serious when they debate. I remember we had a weird thing, and I don't like how the story sounds on paper, but I'll explain it. It was very funny. I was in an African American literature class, and the teacher for extra credit offered us to go see the Harriet Tubman movie. So I went and saw it by myself, and I didn't think it was very good, and I didn't think it was very good for the reason that I thought they kind of turned Harriet Tubman into sort of like a superhero caricature, like for some reason an unrealistic person, instead of just showing the actual so realistically heroic person she was. Because, and I say that for two reasons, is her narcolepsy, the thing where she would pass out a lot. There's also this weird thing where she also gets like visions that are like kind of from God, but they like guide her kind of, which may or may not have been something she said. But they use it in the movie to an extent that it is a power. Like Harriet Tubman just has a superpower in the movie. And then there's also this weird thing where there's like a way too upbeat montage of Harriet Tubman bursting through the doors of the anti-slavery society in the North with like more and more slaves that she's helped escape. But it's like literally a montage. She's like here, and then there's like 8 slaves behind her, and then the guy at the desk is like, Harriet, and he's like, it's fucking crazy. Because her actual story, if you just tell it and you show it, especially at like a paced level, then of course it's impactful and amazing. Like if you really detailed even just one of those journeys, kind of step by step, that would make what she did, her importance, so much more palpable to people watching the movie. With this one, they just brush over it, where it's just like, she's fucking killing it. And you're like, okay, she is, but you're just like using her as this character. Like you're not telling the story. There's no details here, really. So I was just saying that. I was like, yeah, it just seemed almost like kind of like a borderline brushed over, almost like cartoonish portrayal of Harriet Tubman. And then there was a black woman that said, well, I went and I saw it with everyone I know from church, and we cried. So maybe it's just something that some people could like. And then immediately I was like, oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to be rude. I totally think I understand why you would like it. I think anybody could like it. And I think it's great that you liked it. I just didn't think it was like that. I just didn't think it was that good of a portrayal of Harriet Tubman. And she kind of said that stuff some more, but it was a bit awkward because she was part of a group of black women that led the class for good reason, because they were always the most prepared when they came in, and obviously from their lives had the best perspective on it, and were great speakers that wanted to talk a lot. So they just became like the voice of the class, which the rest of us were like, they're killing it. You know what I mean? And then I would raise my hand sometimes and usually agree with them. And from across the class, I was like, all right, well, fucking. But it was funny because I said that, and then one of the women in that group was like, well, we went and we cried. But then it was weird because the other women in the group were on my side, where they're like, yeah, I can kind of see what she's saying. And it sucked because they had to be like, we're on your side. But it is a little cartoony. It was, I don't know. There were a lot of weird days in college. The same woman that said that she cried when she went to see the Harriet Tubman movie also said that she considers herself Native American because she was born here. And then she was saying to herself and her friends in the class, like, we're not black, we're Native American because we were born here. Which is confusing because by that logic, anybody born in America is Native American, which is technically true if you follow the words of Native American, but is not true if you're using what the the phrase Native American actually means. And I think she was saying it as a she was for some reason she was saying that's what her brother tells the cops when he gets pulled over, which I find I don't know how that works. If like the cop pulls over a black dude and the black dude rolls down his window and then he's like, "Hi, I'm Native American." I don't know if the cop would be like, "Nice," like I don't know what would really happen. But I think she was saying it maybe as a way of not being put into a category of other by being Native American. But Native Americans get treated like shit in America by white people too. But it was odd. And when she first said it, I was like, what does that mean? And I thought about it, and then in the other girls in her group, I felt bad for them because they heard that and they were like, ooh. They were nice about it, but they were like, you're bringing the group down with these theories. You're really, she sort of became, and I mean this in the lightest of terms, a bit of a Farrakhan of the group, where the rest of them were like, all right, you're a little in left field right now. You're a little with the theory of the Native American. We're a little bit in left field. Okay, let's get back to the Harlem Renaissance. Let's talk about, but college is like that, which I'm not at all saying that college is, I'm not being one of those guys. It's like college is a bunch of wild liberal theories. I'm very liberal. I agree with all those theories. I was with her for a little on the Native American thing. I was like, all right, huh? And then for a couple hours I thought about it and I was like, oh no, she just said something that doesn't make sense. That's all that was. You ever do that where somebody says something that you're like, huh? And especially as a white dude, I'm like, maybe I'm just not getting it. Let me think about it more. And I thought about it for so long, and I was like, no, that just doesn't, it doesn't add up. But yeah, it has nothing to do with any kind of political affiliation. College in general is just people are so fucking charged up for no reason. And I mean, it is funny because people will talk about like, oh, all these liberals in college, they all fucking freak out and they don't want to debate. But then like you see these fucking Republican kids in college and they're in class and they're just fucking like with sunglasses on in class and they're like, yeah, I don't care that my granddad owned slaves. It's not my fault. And then there's just like a young liberal person that's like, you're such a fucking asshole. And they're like, you're a loot. It's like you're both like just so bad at talking. And one of you is wrong. You should care that slaves happen. The other one of you, your ideas are good, but you don't know how to say them. That's why it's like, I don't know. It is funny because people are like, there should be, like we should never say no to debates on college campuses about anything, which, obviously sometimes they do. Because if they're going to be like, should we debate if trans people are real? It's like, should we? I don't think so. It seems like a pretty slippery slope into them getting kicked in the head, so you don't need to welcome all of that, but then people be like, no, like we need to have as many debates as possible. And they each want to be like, okay, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to be debated in college, why don't we talk about the fact that the people debating it are going to be 23. What are we doing? What are we going to get out of this? They're fucking idiots, okay? They're just dumb. It's almost scary to teach them shit. That's why when they stop, a certain guy from lecturing at a college, it's like, you know what? Kids are fucking stupid. And maybe that guy is too much for those kids. You know what I mean? A guy like Jordan Peterson, he goes up there, he says some wild shit, and it's really bad for like a 19-year-old dude. Like that vibe of, to kind of divide and conquer almost is bad for a 19-year-old dude. Maybe if you're 30, and you're like, hey, he's right, maybe I should make my bed. Like, that's great. But, I mean, listen, yeah, it is just so funny because it's like you shouldn't want a guy from YouTube to go speak at your college. When at the same time, YouTube is still a platform with tons of great shit on it, but it is so funny because it's like the lecturers that get the biggest on YouTube are not in any way the smartest. They're the most provocative. Like Jordan Peterson and Slavoj Zizek are like very provocative, just acting people. They're just eccentric. They're just weird. They both have weird voices. They both dress weird. They both look kind of odd, and they usually talk about topical things. So they're pop philosophers if there ever were ones. Um, and I like Slavoj a lot. Um, maybe not everything he has to say, but I'm usually on his side about stuff. I like what he says. And I don't want to take away from the fucking 50 books that he's ever written, but the point is, it's like I'll watch that guy Slavoj Zizek, who's just I've talked about him. He's like a Slovenian philosopher. I'll watch him, and he's interesting, and I like watching him. And then I'll watch other people talk about the same shit, and then I'm just less interested. And it makes me realize how fucking stupid I am and how fucking stupid everybody is. That it's like, oh, I'm listening to him more just because he has like a interesting voice. That's honestly way harder to understand. The way that he puts together sentences, it's like watching him speak in the biggest compound run-on sentence you've ever seen is just almost impressive. You know what I mean? Where once he gets to the end of it, you're just like, did I get that one? I don't know. Let's wait for the second minute-long sentence and see if I can understand what he's saying. Where it's like, I don't know. I think I'm also stupid to a level that I watch that kind of stuff and I'm just like, well, maybe it's really just a challenge just to watch it. Like, really, that's what I mean. Like, I'm watching these guys that I barely understand them, but I'm watching it pretty much just because I barely understand them. Because it's like, I don't like that my brain cannot fully process everything another human is saying. Where it's like, to some extent, could he be a little more concise in his speaking? Definitely. But also, are the things he's speaking about concise in any way at all? No. I think you probably just shouldn't listen to someone too much. You know what I mean? Just in general, you probably just shouldn't listen to somebody too much. And that's my problem, is like, I'll just listen to like the same podcasters, like just talk over and over again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll just listen to so much Shane Gillis until I'm just walking out in the world like, that's gay. Like, just listening to this, and you realize that's why the internet's so fucked up, because it's like, I think he's hilarious, but I'm also not supposed to just listen to a guy from, the middle of Pennsylvania talk for like an hour every single day. Like, I'm not, that's what's so fucked up about videos. Like, I know this is such like a basic thought, but I was thinking like, man, videos are so fucked up because you're seeing something that you were not supposed to see. Like, that was not part of the plan for you to see that. I'm not supposed to know what Paris looks like, and my life would be better if I didn't know what Paris looked like. You know what I mean? Because it's like, in the old days, you would just hear about places, and the world was magical because people could just tell you that there were streets of gold, and you had no conception of how much gold that would take, or how much gold exists, or where that is, or what that would look like, or how you would work that out. And now you just know everything, and you know other people too well, and people are famous for being known. And it's like, life would make sense if you just woke up and you saw what was in front of you, you walked out the door, you saw, and you just, everything you're seeing, you're like, all right, I'm seeing this because I'm here. But I just wake up, I go online, and then my brain is like, why are we watching a tiger eat a guy? Was it, and I'm not even searching it up. You just go on, you go on Twitter, and then there's just somebody being like, do you see this? And you're like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, I watched a lady hold another lady hostage in Walmart today. I saw that. and I'm not supposed to. And somebody who was there videotaped it, because now it's just in our heads that if it's happening, we should videotape it. And I mean, it kind of made sense for him to videotape once the cops got there in case they do some shady shit. They did shoot and kill her, but she was holding a lady by the neck and was carrying a gun. So she had a hostage, and I assume wouldn't put down the gun. So sometimes that's how the cookie crumbles. I don't know any of the details of that situation, but it makes sense for the guy to film a cop interaction. But before, it's just a lady holding a lady in Walmart hostage, and the guy's just like, stop. He's like, put her down. Come on. And it's like, you realize if you have your hands up, this is almost like a fighting signal. Like, put her down. You know what I mean? It's like, what do you... Because when you put up a phone, people say the same shit you say when you put up a gun when they're all stressed. They're like, put the phone up, put it down. Put that down. You know what I mean? And the lady in Walmart is just... I mean, she is like a bad actor in a shitty movie of a person being held hostage. She's like... But it was, I saw it and I was like, that would be me too. That would be anybody in the world would be like that. If you're being held hostage, there's no other way you would be except like, you're just getting held hostage and you're like, it would make it look like you were part of that. Or like somehow you were in on it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can't say you're not supposed to know about stuff, because you can make the same thing of like, well, are you supposed to read a book from a guy that lived 100 years ago in Austria? And I honestly think a little bit more than seeing a video, to be honest, because that would make sense, actually, yeah. Because for that book to be written, it had to have the intention of being written. You had to care about it for a long time. It had to be read by somebody else and then published. And then a bunch of other people had to read it and like it and say it's good. And then way more people had to like it and read it, say it's good, until a small group of people decided that that book would now be part of the future of reading and would be added to the canon, you know what I mean? And it's not a reading that would be lost, that it's something to be preserved. So by the time it gets to you, there's like hundreds of years of almost checks and balances and time put into that book being in your hands. And there's not only a reason for it being written, but for a reason for it to still be read. And so the time itself kind of exemplifies the quality of the book. The thing with these videos is somebody takes a video, 1 million people see it. There's no quality check on whether or not that's something people need to see. And most of the time it's not, and that's why nothing on the internet lasts more than like 2 fucking days. So it's like, and then now it's gone to the point where when people do work really hard on stuff or do take a lot of time on stuff, it's consumed in the same way. So even though there is so much more quality in whatever product that person is putting out, it's being fed through the same cycle of shit, so it's being treated as shit. So it's like, even when people get something good, they just view it as more content that they're entitled to get, the same as watching a video of a tiger being eaten, But meanwhile, it's like, that fucker was over there writing The Old Man in the Sea, shoving shit up his ass, wanting to kill himself, Worked hard on that book, and, it meant something to people. And the other books that Hemingway wrote, I mean, fucking Sylvia Plath shoved her head in an oven. Did all that work to try and be an artist and a mother and a person. She ended up sticking her fucking head in an oven. But before she did that, she wrote a lot of great things that a lot of other people have said that's great too. And I'm sure in some ways it's helped them, or at least made them feel not so alone at certain times in their life, But, meanwhile, more people have seen the now second most viewed social media post, which is a picture of an egg. More people have seen that than have read maybe almost any artist ever, like that largest collection of people. You know what I mean? It's like the most viewed picture now on Instagram is Messi holding the World Cup. Before that, I guess it's a picture of an egg. I don't know the numbers on it, but I'd say besides, the Bible or some religious text, I would say no author has probably had as many readers as people have viewed that egg. So it's like the reach for shit that is absolutely pointless now is humongous. But what's good is that pointless shit still, it doesn't have any staying power. So yes, it has been viewed, but it hasn't been internalized to even a quarter of 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 a percent of, any book that's ever been written. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Books go out and make people kill people. You know what I mean? Catcher in the Rye, John Lennon is dead because of that book. I mean, along with major psychological problems. He's out, by the way, John Hinckley Jr., if you don't know. No, I'm sorry. That was a guy that, whoever the guy that assassinated Reagan is out, not Lennon. He might also be out, but I don't know. It is funny now because it's like if what you're selling is consumed so quickly, it doesn't matter if it's shit. It's kind of the same thing as fast food. If you bring a McDonald's hamburger out at a restaurant that you're sitting down at, you're unhappy because that's a small, tiny hamburger that is shitty that you expect more from a restaurant. But if you get it from McDonald's, it's perfect. So it's funny because people will be like, well, how do all these fucking TikTok people have so many followers and make so much money and get so many views? And it's like, because it's pretty easy for somebody to open an app and then look at somebody just go, woo, and then keep going. You just make a GIF of you dancing. Like fucking, Addison Rae makes a video every day that's, could be less than 20 seconds, and it's just her dancing, and she makes 50 to 80K off of that. And it's just because people watch it, and people are like, but how? And you're like, because it's easy. Because it's fucking easy, okay? Because your hour-long podcast where you just talk by yourself with no guests ever fucking sucks. So that's why more people watch her. And it makes complete sense, The only nerd thing, the only spiteful nerd thing that you can hold on to is that hopefully, maybe what you make will have some lasting power. But chances are it won't. That being said, I'm not a spiteful nerd at all against anybody like Addison Rae or anybody like that. They're fucking geniuses. And it is like a new kind of gold rush to kind of put faith in something that so many other people think is stupid, But the same with any gold rush, only a couple of people kind of can really do it, to that extent. But I mean, I don't know, a couple of years ago I was talking to a guy that was, he was described to me as a YouTuber. So I was like, oh, you do YouTube stuff? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, that's cool. What do you want to like eventually get into? And he was like, well, I feel like that's kind of an antiquated question because like with like current like viewing tendencies and TV going away and stuff like, he was just pretty much just saying there is a future for having a career as a personality on YouTube as opposed to on television. And I think he's right in a lot of ways. I think he probably even made a point that it makes more sense to be on YouTube than it does television, which maybe in some ways is true if you can really build a following. And I thought he was an asshole, and I still think he was an asshole because he said it like an asshole. But I mean, what he said is completely true. That nowadays it is very stupid to look at any app or any website and not understand how somebody could make $1 billion fucking dollars from that website. I mean, Amazon's a fucking website. It's like there's so much money on the internet. I just feel like for some reason it's just, what I mean is you just never see the money on the internet really, except for some guys. But it's like on TV you see the money because they take all that money and they build these miraculous sets or they do whatever, movies, you see the money. It makes sense that all those people make so much money. But then you look at like YouTubers, and a lot of them are just in their room, like obviously nicer than this, but they're just in their room, but they make millions of dollars, and you're like, what the fuck? What do you do? You know what I mean? Like, but a couple guys show it. Like, That's the craziest thing is like the guy like Mr. Beast or David Dobrik or these guys that give away Teslas or a bunch of fucking money. It's like everybody's so surprised because it's like they're just these douchebags that make videos. And then all of a sudden they just show up with $2 million and you're like, where is this from? And they're like, fucking ad revenue, man. Okay? Fucking sponsoring, fucking product placement, fucking brand partnerships. And it's like, oh yeah, because everybody's on the fucking internet, so that's where probably 95% of fucking advertising is now, is on the internet. So of course you have a shit ton of money. But they're essentially almost just like commercial artists in a sense, you know. It's like once they get that big, they just put their face on stuff and they just sell stuff and they've sold themselves from the start, which is, it is weird because it's like there's this thing now with a lot of these guys like David Dobrik, which are guys that make content, but it's not art. And all they do is they just sell themselves as a likable guy, but they don't really sell anything else, you know? So it's like, I don't know, it's almost like it's like the purest form of like the art of marketing, of like to have no product really and have the product be the marketing pretty much. Like the product is like him giving a Tesla away to somebody. It's like the whole video is him being like, look at what a cool fucking guy I am. And giving him this Tesla. And then he takes a video of that. And that video is what he's selling. He's telling people he's a cool guy, making money for doing that, and then giving them Teslas. If he was doing that with every single person in the world, and it wasn't a fucking Tesla, he might be the coolest guy ever. When I explain it like that, a lot less hate for YouTubers. But also, it is a pretty soulless thing that I think fucking, I don't know, just sucks. But also, I don't think it sucks in the way that it has anything to do with my life. There is not a single thing in my life that David Dobrik has held me back from. I am my own worst enemy, and it makes complete sense that somebody would want to watch a lady break down crying after getting a Tesla than me sitting in a chair like this. You know, I understand that. Maybe I should start doing YouTube. You know what I mean? Maybe I should start going to Ralph's parking lots and going up to somebody and being like, hey, is this your kid? And she'll be like, yeah, this is my kid. And I'll be like, great fucking news. I got your kid a summer vacation to Belize for 2 months at a horseback riding colony. How excited are you? And then she's like, oh, like for the whole family? And I'm like, no, just for the kid. And she's like, he's 6. And I'm like, it's the perfect time to learn horseback riding. 2 months in Belize. He's going. And she's like, oh, actually, I don't really know about that. That seems a little fishy. I mean, he's only 6. I wouldn't let him go alone to Belize for 2 months. And then all of a sudden, the hype van pulls up, which is like a super cool, like light up Mercedes van with like my face on it and like my home address and phone number and license number and birth certificate and stuff. It's all on the outside of the van in really big letters, so you could see it from a helicopter or a cop car. And you know, that pulls up, and then we just grab that kid and we, you know, hop him in the van and we start heading to the airport because we're going to Belize for 2 months for horseback riding camp. We're filming the whole thing, and his mom is like driving behind us, and she's calling the cops, and eventually the cops go behind her and they tell her like, get out of the way, and then she's like, my son, and you know, she gets out of the way, but now she's following the cops are following me, and you know, they're trying to do like pit maneuvers, but we fucking planned for that. We got one of the best drivers in the West Coast, and he's going around those, and fucking they're throwing out spike strips, but we got metal tires, you know, and like we got cool shit that we're doing, and we're also throwing out like hundreds of dollars and like cards to Teslas, you know what I mean, like keys, like Tesla keys, just out of the fucking window, and like, you know, we killed a kid, but no, I don't know. I wonder if I could be a YouTuber with this charisma. Technically, I am a YouTuber, but also a Spotifyer. I think podcaster is kind of worse than YouTuber. I don't want to. listen, I do stand-up comedy. I just want people to watch the stand-up, but I can't do an hour of stand-up a week. But I can talk and be, mildly interesting, maybe, if I talk fast enough for an hour a week. I don't know. But I don't think it would work if I was walking around on the street and I was just like, I don't think people would believe me. Like, if I walked up to a guy and I was like, hey, do you want a Tesla? I think he'd just be like, I'm not, this is a multi-level marketing scheme. Just going up to trying to do prank videos of getting out of a Ferrari, being like, do you like this car, girls? Would you leave your boyfriend for this car, girls? And the boyfriend would be like, I'm going to beat your ass. And be like, all right, I'm leaving. I like all those videos where it's like some shit about like a guy goes up to flirt with a girl and then she's not interested, and then he walks over to a Ferrari and she's like, now I'm interested. And it's like, I think that girl's just an actor, and I don't know why the video exists at all. I realize how much I don't like thinking about shit that's really popular on the internet because it really scares me. And I feel the level of detachment that I have from so many things on the internet, not just detachment, but just complete misunderstanding of how anybody could enjoy that unironically, is a feeling I don't want to feel, and I don't think I should feel. And I think it's because of what I'm saying, is how, videos and shit. But fucking, there are these videos on TikTok where it'd be something like a guy and his girlfriend are walking, and then another guy walks towards them, and then the guy by himself gets on his knee, and then the boyfriend is all pissed, and the girl's like, ooh, he's gonna propose, which he's a stranger, why would he? But he gets on his knee, and then the guy ends up not proposing, he's just tying his shoe, and then everyone's like, or like it'll be a thing where like it'll be the same thing, but it's like one guy and a boyfriend, girlfriend, and then like he'll go by and look at the girl, and then the boyfriend gets mad, and then the guy like flips the girl's boyfriend, or like it's always this, it's either like stealing a girl, like defending her honor, and there's also like there's no talking, and this is filmed in like slow motion with a lot of like zoom in on faces and like cuts, and it's like they just, I don't know what it's this whole genre. It's these young kids and they do this, and they're almost like allegorical, but the allegory is just like, get away from my girl. Like that's kind of the point of the whole story. But people watch that, and it's not people that are so funny as to make an ironic joke about a genre that doesn't even exist yet. Like to make a whole genre that is purely parodying something that doesn't exist but could exist. Like it's not even that. It exists, and it's just bad. But I guess, like, I don't know, maybe like middle school girls in the Middle East watch it and they're like, he loves her. Because I think a lot of them are filmed. I feel like they're all from like Turkey. I feel like for some reason, like Turkey or Armenia, they're definitely not making them together. But I think it's one of those countries, like they're for some reason there's a lot of videos coming out there about like, don't steal my girl. Which, listen, I can talk at length about stealing my girl. If you steal my girl, I will make a TikTok about it that is an allegory of why you shouldn't mess with a guy with a long t-shirt, okay? Because it's going to be the end of you, okay? I'm going to flip you on your ass outside of a mall, and we're going to film a TikTok about it, and we're going to have a music overdub, and it's going to go viral, and you're going to look like a dumbass. So listen, if you fuck with the bull, you get the horns. And by the horns, I mean my 56,000 14 to 16-year-old fans coming at you. I'm a YouTuber, okay? I make a living off of children, okay? But oops, it comes out that I used to be in far-right Facebook groups. Uh-oh, I'm still gonna play games on Twitch. That's not a specific person. right? I don't know. PewDiePie was racist. A lot of other guys on Twitch racist. I mean, it was a terrible idea. It's so funny because before Twitch came out, I never played live like Call of Duty or anything like that, but my friends would, and I knew that it was just a slur fest on there. So when I started hearing that people were filming themselves play live games, I was like, you're just going to film yourself saying the N-word? Like, what are you guys doing? Because I don't play those games. But from what I hear from you guys, it's how you play those games. So I tell you right now, I don't think you should put that on a live stream across the world. But I don't know. That's just me. I don't know what these kids are doing nowadays. You know what I mean? Well, I had a very fun time broadcasting today. What if I just take quiet for 10 seconds? No, thank you so much for coming. I had a wonderful time broadcasting today. And I will see you next week on the next edition of Cooper Lyden is Alone. Thank you.